The words hung in the air like poison. "I'm untouchable," the millionaire's wife whispered, her smile sharp as a blade, eyes daring Judge Judy to try her. The courtroom went silent, deadly silent. Everyone felt it. That shift. That moment before the storm hits. Judge Judy's face didn't move, but her eyes, they burned. She leaned forward, slow, deliberate, like a predator sizing up prey. The wife's smirk flickered. Just for a second, and in that second she realized she'd made a terrible mistake. The next 60 seconds would destroy everything. But before we get into it, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom moments. Her smirk did not fade. If anything, it grew sharper, like she enjoyed watching the courtroom absorb her arrogance. The echo of her words, "I am untouchable," still clung to the air like something toxic and sweet. The millionaire's wife stood there in a posture too casual for a courtroom, her shoulders tilted like she was posing for a portrait rather than facing judgment. The overhead lights washed over her diamonds, scattering flashes across the polished wood of Judge Judy's bench. Each glint felt like a reminder. Wealth was her shield, and she intended to wield it boldly. Judge Judy did not speak at first. She did not need to. Silence was her scalpel. She simply watched the woman with a look that could peel layers from veneer. The courtroom held still around them. Even the bailiff seemed to forget to breathe. The wife broke the quiet first, brushing imaginary dust from her designer sleeve. "Your Honor, I really think we can make this quick," she said. Her voice carried that gentle cruelty reserved for people who have been believed their entire lives. Some people dramatize situations when they do not understand how the world works. The plaintiff, a young housekeeper standing at the opposite podium, lowered her eyes. Her fingers tightened around a soft brown folder, edges worn from being held too often. She looked as though she had rehearsed bravery, but not confidence. Judge Judy's gaze flicked toward her. "Is that your folder?" she asked, voice even, almost soft, but with an edge you could feel even in the back row. The plaintiff nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, it has everything." The wife let out a laugh, thin, sharp, practiced. "Everything," she repeated, as if the word amused her. "Oh, please. She has always been dramatic. That is why she is standing here today. Some people cannot accept when they have been let go for poor performance." The plaintiff flinched. Not from the words themselves, but from the casual tone in which they were delivered. The tone of someone stepping on something fragile without realizing it matters. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. "We will see about that." The wife smiled wider, crossing her arms. "I am sure you will." The atmosphere shifted. The tension was not loud. It was thick, like humidity before lightning strikes. Judge Judy lowered her eyes to the plaintiff again. Her voice softened another degree, which somehow made the room feel colder. "Let me see the folder." Every head turned as the plaintiff stepped forward, holding it out with both hands. Her breath shook. The courtroom lights caught the tremble. The wife's smirk brightened, confident, unbothered, a woman convinced she owned the narrative. Judge Judy did not reach for the folder yet. She studied the plaintiff's shaking fingers, then the wife's unwavering grin. And then she said, quiet but unmistakable, "Before I open this, why does it feel heavier than it looks?" The plaintiff swallowed hard, her eyes lifting, and in them was something the courtroom had not seen yet. Fear and truth waiting to be revealed. The folder moved through the air like a secret being carried to judgment. Every step the plaintiff took made the courtroom quieter. Even the wife's smirk faded for a blink, just a blink, as the folder reached Judge Judy's hands. The plaintiff's fingers released it slowly, as if letting go of something that had protected her for too long. Judge Judy accepted it with both hands, her touch deliberate, respectful. The courtroom leaned forward without meaning to. There was something about the object, the way it bowed slightly in the middle, the way its edges curled in fatigue, that suggested it had lived through more than paper should. The wife exhaled loudly. "Your Honor, I really do not think we need to indulge this performance. That folder is nothing. I could put together a thicker file about my dry cleaning." Judge Judy did not look up. "Good thing you did not," she said, her tone flat enough to slice. The folder opened with a soft rustle. Pages whispered against one another like they were afraid to be seen. The first sheet was a handwritten note, uneven handwriting, words pushed too close together. Judy's eyes scanned it slowly, her expression unreadable. "What is that?" the wife demanded, her voice too quick. "A note," Judy said. "From you or someone impersonating you. We will get to that." The wife's jaw twitched. She probably wrote it herself. She always wanted attention. It is sad, really. The plaintiff's shoulders tightened, but she said nothing. Her silence felt heavier than accusations. Judy turned to the next page, receipts taped with care, dates circled in blue ink. Another page. A photograph. Something about the corner of it, bent and soft, made Judy pause. She lifted it by the edges, raising it into the light. The room reacted as one. A collective lean, a breath held. The wife crossed her arms. "A photo? Really? She is grasping at anything. This is ridiculous." Judy studied the image. Not a word came from her, but the shift in her posture was unmistakable. She had found something. The plaintiff whispered, "It is from the day I left." The wife scoffed. "According to you, she cannot even remember what day it was. It is not credible." Judge Judy lowered the photo slowly, like lowering a verdict that had not yet been spoken. Her eyes landed on the wife, steady, heavy, unblinking. "Ma'am," she said, "would you like to explain this?" The wife blinked twice, her mouth tightening around a smile that did not want to stay. "Explain what? A picture of her standing in my hallway? She probably snuck back in." She let out a laugh that sounded thinner than before. "People like her do that. They create stories." But Judy did not look away. She flipped the photo over, her thumb brushing the back. Her brows lifted, barely, but enough for tension to snap through the room like electricity. "Interesting," she murmured. The wife shifted. "What is interesting?" Judge Judy rotated the photo so only she could see the back of it. Her voice dropped to something slow and surgical. "The date and the signature. They tell a different story entirely." The wife laughed, but the sound did not land the way it should have. It wobbled, thin at the edges. For the first time her confidence flickered, a light bulb struggling against truth. Judge Judy held the photo between two fingers, as if the truth itself might bruise if she pressed too hard. The wife straightened her posture, forcing her smile back into place, but the room had already sensed it, the tiny fracture beneath that polished exterior. "What exactly is your concern with the date?" the wife said, her voice bright and brittle. "Anyone can scribble on a photo." Judy's response came like a quiet hammer. "You did not scribble this, someone else did." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The plaintiff's breath caught. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hum louder, as if reacting to the tension. The wife tilted her head. "Are we truly wasting time over something so trivial? I have places to be." Judy did not blink. "You will stay right here." The wife's smile faltered again, small but noticeable, like a mask slipping half an inch. Judge Judy turned to the plaintiff. "You said this was from the day you left." The plaintiff nodded, her hands twisting together. "Yes, Your Honor. She stopped me in the hallway. She said something I have not forgotten." This time, the wife stiffened. "Here we go. Another dramatic invention." Judy raised a hand, silencing her without effort. "And what did she say to you that day?" The plaintiff hesitated. Words pulled at her like something heavy, something she had carried too long. She looked down, then lifted her eyes slowly, eyes that glimmered with hurt that had not healed. She said, "People like you do not get to accuse people like me." The courtroom inhaled sharply. The wife slapped her hand on the podium. "I never said that. She is lying. She has always exaggerated everything. Stop." Judy's voice sliced through the air. "Now you are reacting. But I noticed something you probably did not realize." The wife's breathing quickened. "And what is that supposed to mean?" Judy set the photo down gently, almost tenderly, as though truth deserved respect even when people did not. It means your tone changes every time she speaks. Not when I question you, not when I point out inconsistencies, only when she tells her side. The wife blinked rapidly. My tone? That is ridiculous. But the mask was cracking piece by piece. Her smiles were arriving too late. Her laughs were vanishing too fast. Her eyes, once sharp and bold, now shifted in rapid, nervous darts, the eyes of someone losing grip on a story she thought she had mastered. The plaintiff swallowed, voice fragile but steady. Everything in that folder. It is what happened. I kept it because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Judy asked softly. The plaintiff's voice trembled. Of her, of what she could do, of what she said she would do. The wife's face darkened like a cloud passing over sun. Do not twist this, she hissed. You left because you could not handle the job. Judge Judy leaned forward, her gaze narrowing. And yet, she said, tapping the photo with one finger, this picture suggests your stories do not match. Judy flips the photo over once more, tapping the signature on the back. Tell me, ma'am, why does this say you were home that day when you swore under oath you were not? The courtroom felt too small for the silence that followed Judy's question. The wife's eyes darted, a flash of panic breaking through the gold of her confidence. And in that flicker, everyone sensed it. The truth was not just catching up to her, it was stepping on her heels. Judge Judy held the photo steady between her fingers. The date glowed in the overhead light, bold enough to betray, subtle enough to sting. The wife swallowed, the movement sharp, rigid, as though pride had lodged itself in her throat. I was not home that day, she insisted, chin lifting defiantly. This is fabricated, I told you, she lies, she always lies. The plaintiff flinched again, but this time she did not look down. Something inside her seemed to harden, a quiet resolve built from years of being dismissed. Judge Judy turned fully toward her. What happened in that hallway? She asked, voice low, controlled, heavy with the kind of patience that promised consequences. The plaintiff's lips parted, but no sound came. She pressed her fingertips together, grounding herself. Judy waited. The whole room waited. Finally she spoke. She told me? The words trembled at first, then steadied. She told me people like me should remember their place, that if I ever tried anything, she would make sure I never worked again. A ripple of gasps spread through the benches. The wife let out a harsh, almost panicked laugh. Oh, please, she is being dramatic. I would never say something like that. She is making herself the victim because that is what people like her do. People like her? Judy repeated, turning her head slowly. What exactly does that mean? The wife froze. Her lips tightened, her throat bobbed once, twice. I meant employees, staff, people who do not understand. No, Judy cut in, her voice suddenly sharper. That is not what you meant, and you know it. The wife's face turned rigid, carved into defensive elegance. Her hands gripped the podium so tightly her knuckles blanched, diamonds digging into her own skin. Judy shifted her attention to the folder. She flipped through its pages again, methodical, her silence louder than any accusation. Each rustling sheet felt like a countdown. Tell me, Judy said without looking up. Why would she feel the need to save all of this? Notes, messages, receipts, photographs. What would make someone so afraid of you? The plaintiff inhaled shakily. Because she said she would ruin me, she whispered. She said I was replaceable. The wife snapped. You were, and clearly you still are. That outburst cracked the room open. Judy's head lifted, her expression darkening with something colder than anger. Disappointment. There it is, she murmured. The truth you keep trying to hide. The wife's breath hitched, barely audible. The mask was slipping faster now, the edges curling under the heat of scrutiny. Judge Judy slowly turned the photograph over, tapping the signature and the date with one deliberate finger. The sound echoed like a small gavel strike. This, she said, proves you were home, that you met her, that something happened you did not want on record. The wife's eyes widened, her facade fracturing clean down the center. Judy lifted the photo higher. Because the person who signed this, she said, was you. and the date proves your story is already falling apart." For a full second, the wife could not speak. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, like she was searching for oxygen in a room that suddenly had none. The lie had snapped, right in her hands, and the sound of it breaking echoed louder than her diamonds ever could. Judge Judy lowered the photo with slow precision, placing it on the bench like evidence in a delicate crime. Her eyes lifted, steady and unimpressed. The wife tried to straighten her posture again, forcing herself taller, but something in her shoulders had already dropped, a subtle defeat she could not hide. "I did not lie," she finally managed, her voice brittle as cracked glass. I misremembered the date. It happens. People forget." Judy raised one eyebrow. "You forgot a day that ended someone's livelihood?" The plaintiff stood silently, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She did not gloat. She did not smirk. The heaviness of the moment sat on her like a weight she had carried too long. The wife's voice sharpened with sudden defensiveness. "You are acting like this is some grand conspiracy. I dismissed her because she was irresponsible. She made mistakes constantly. She was lucky I kept her as long as I did." The plaintiff swallowed hard. Her eyes shimmered, but she stayed still, restrained, as though tears would somehow make the truth weaker. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, studying the wife with a gaze that felt like a slow dissection. "If she was truly that incompetent," she said, "why does every document in this folder tell a different story?" The wife scoffed loudly. "Because she made those. Obviously, she has been planning this. This is revenge, because I let her go." "And the photo?" Judy asked. Silence. A heavy one, dense enough to bend the air. The wife blinked rapidly, scrambling. She must have had someone else sign it. I have no idea. People create things all the time to make rich families look bad." Judge Judy's expression did not move. "Ma'am, I have been in a courtroom longer than you have been wearing designer heels. I know what manufactured evidence looks like. This is not it." A weak flush climbed the wife's neck. Her tone sharpened, desperate now. "Fine. Maybe I was home that day. Maybe I saw her. But she was the one who caused problems. She stole from me. She took advantage." Judy held out a hand. "Proof." The wife blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. If she stole something, prove it." The wife let out a breathy laugh. I have a bank statement. Charges she made without my permission. It is in my purse." Judge Judy motioned. "Then bring it out." The wife reached into her designer bag with trembling fingers. The rustle of leather and paper suddenly sounded like thunder in the courtroom. She pulled out a folded document, smoothing it dramatically on the podium. "Here. This shows everything." Judy took it without comment. She held it up to the light, scanning it with the precision of someone who had exposed thousands of lies before breakfast. The courtroom waited, breathless. Judy's eyes narrowed. She lowered the document slowly, her voice cold enough to silence the room. "Ma'am, this statement does not look right. Tell me, who exactly printed this?" The bank statement trembled in Judge Judy's hand, but not from her grip. It trembled because the truth inside it was unstable, rattling like something ready to explode. And the wife's smirk, once bold and bright, was beginning to collapse under its own weight. Judge Judy tilted the page toward the fluorescent lights. The numbers glowed unevenly, the rows misaligned like someone had assembled the truth in a hurry. Not one corner of the document lay flat. The folds were new, too new, as if created minutes before walking into the courtroom. The wife lifted her chin. "There, you see? Unauthorized purchases. She charged my account multiple times. I have been more than generous giving her a chance to defend herself." Judy did not respond. She stared at the paper as though listening to it breathe. The plaintiff watched, her hands clasped tightly against her chest, a fragile anchor holding her steady. Finally, Judy spoke. "Tell me, ma'am, what am I looking at?" "A bank statement." "No," Judy said calmly. "I mean in detail. Explain these charges." The wife's mouth parted, but no words came. She blinked once, twice. Her eyes darted across the numbers like they were written in a foreign language. Of course I know what they are," she said, voice pitched too high. "They are purchases she made, obviously. Judy lowered the paper an inch. Which purchases? Point to one. The wife hesitated, then jabbed her finger at a line of text. That one. What is it? It is a charge. To a store. A designer store. Judy leaned closer. What store? The wife swallowed. A boutique. What boutique? Silence. The plaintiff's eyes widened, sorrow and vindication mixing into something heavier. Judge Judy's voice dropped, smooth and surgical. Ma'am, I asked what boutique. The wife's jaw tightened. Well, I do not remember the exact name, but you claimed she stole from you, Judy interrupted, so you should be intimately familiar with these charges. The wife's face paled. A thin sheen of sweat glimmered across her forehead. Judy lifted the page again, turning it slightly. Because here is something interesting. These numbers do not match the format of real statements from your bank. A wave of murmurs washed across the room. And the font? Judy added, tapping her nail against the text. Not even close. The wife tried to speak, but her voice cracked. It must be an older template. Banks update their styles. Do they? Judy asked, raising one eyebrow. That is remarkable, because this older template uses a logo that your bank did not adopt until last year. The wife's breath hitched. Judy placed the document down with deliberate gentleness, the kind of gentleness that came just before judgment. Who printed this? She asked. The wife's lips trembled. My assistant. She handles paperwork for me. Judy stared at her, long, unblinking, devastatingly calm. Your assistant created evidence for this courtroom? The wife's face drained of color. I am sure she did not mean. Answer the question, Judy said. The wife's voice shrank. Yes. Judy tapped the forged document once. Ma'am, she said softly, you just admitted to submitting falsified evidence, and that changes everything. The forged document lay on the bench like a confession made of paper. The wife's breath quickened, her chest rising in sharp, uneven bursts, and for the first time, she looked small, like truth itself was standing on her shoulders. Judge Judy did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her silence alone pressed the room inward, tightening every inch between the wife and the reality she had spent years outrunning. The plaintiff watched quietly, fingers interlaced so tightly they shook, but she did not look away. She had seen this woman powerful. Watching her unravel felt like witnessing a storm finally meet the ground it had threatened for so long. Judy lifted the forged statement with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. Let us be clear, she said, each word a precise incision. This is not a mistake. This is not an oversight. This is falsified evidence. The wife swallowed hard. I did not know my assistant. Stop. Judy's hand sliced the air with calm authority. If you believed this document, you would know what it said. You would know the bank. You would know the charges, but you could not identify a single one. The wife's voice cracked. Because I trusted? No, Judy said, leaning forward. You used that trust as a shield, but the shield is gone. A bead of sweat traced down the wife's temple, catching the fluorescent light. She wiped it quickly, but the gesture was too late. The courtroom had already seen it. The pressure was not metaphorical anymore. It was physical, visible, dripping down her face. The plaintiff stepped forward slightly, unable to hold back her voice any longer. Your Honor, she told me she would destroy me. I believed her. She had power I did not. The wife snapped. I never said that. She exaggerates everything. Judge Judy raised a finger and the wife's words died. What I see, Judy said, her tone low and deliberate, is a pattern. You dismiss her, then panic when evidence surfaces. You change your story each time the truth corners you. The wife's jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. She is just a housekeeper. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Even the bailiff turned his head slightly, as if the air itself reacted to the insult. Judy's eyes sharpened. A housekeeper is a human being, and in this courtroom she is equal to you. You will not diminish her here. The weight of that sentence hit the wife like a physical impact. Her lips tightened, her posture stiffening in wounded pride. Judy pressed on. Now, Let me ask you something simple. Why would you need to submit forged evidence if you truly believed she wronged you? The wife froze. No words, no excuses, just silence that finally betrayed her. Judy leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. Because the truth is not on your side, and it never was. The wife's hands trembled against the podium. Judy tapped the forged statement once more. Sit tight, she said. We are not done, not even close, because the next piece of evidence changes everything. The courtroom felt different now, as if the air itself had changed allegiance. The wife was no longer the center of gravity. Judge Judy was. The forged statement still lay on the bench, its edges curling upward like it was trying to escape the shame printed on it. Judge Judy pushed it aside with a single unimpressed finger. That small gesture alone rewrote the room's balance of power. Let us move on, Judy said, crisp as a blade. Since your evidence has dissolved, we will examine something with actual credibility. The wife stiffened, her hands seizing the podium like it might anchor her. Her hair, still flawless, no longer looked like a crown. It looked like armor cracking. Judy signaled the clerk. A second folder, thin, pale, and official, was placed beside the forged document. Its presence shifted the room again. This one did not tremble. This one had weight. The plaintiff's breath caught the moment she recognized it. Judy opened it slowly. I requested employment records and communication logs prior to this hearing, she said. I wanted a fuller picture. The wife's face drained. You. What? Why would you? Because, Judy interrupted. Your reactions told me there was more than a simple workplace dispute. She lifted a printed email, holding it like a mirror the wife dared not look into. This message, Judy continued, was sent from your personal account to a hiring agency. The wife's lips parted in a wordless plea, but no sound emerged. Judy read aloud, each word carving into the stillness. Ensure she is not hired at any partnering properties. She needs to learn her place. Gasps rippled through the benches like a wave hitting stone. The wife's knees bent slightly, as if the ground itself tipped beneath her. That email is taken out of context, she stammered. You do not understand. She was... Stop. Judy's voice snapped through her sentence with surgical precision. This is not guidance. This is retaliation. The plaintiff's throat bobbed. Her hands closed around each other, holding the truth she had waited so long to have acknowledged. Judy continued reading, slower now, letting every word land. Make sure no one considers her for domestic roles. She caused problems for our household. The plaintiff flinched, not from the cruelty she already knew, but from hearing it validated aloud. The wife finally broke into pleading panic. She was ungrateful. She was stepping out of line. I had to protect my home. Judy leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice low. Protect it from what? From someone doing her job, or from someone who simply refused to be intimidated? The wife shook her head, breath fractured. I did nothing wrong. People like her. Finish that sentence, Judy said, voice deadly calm. I dare you. The wife's mouth snapped shut. Power had shifted, and it was permanent. This email, Judy said, tapping it once, is not just unprofessional, it is malicious, and it destroys any credibility you had left. The wife's eyes glistened, fear, fury, the collapse of control. Judy folded the email, placing it atop the forged evidence. Ma'am, she said softly, your story is not unraveling. It is imploding. The wife's lips parted, but no sound came out. The email sat between them like a detonated truth. Nothing left to hide behind, nothing left to twist. And in the silence that followed, her entire posture changed, as if her arrogance had finally exhausted itself. She gripped the podium, diamonds digging into her palms, breath shuddering in shallow bursts. A tremor ran through her shoulders, not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakable. It was the tremor of someone realizing the ground beneath them was not ground at all. It was a cliff. Judge Judy did not look triumphant. She did not need triumph. She needed truth, and she had it now, laid bare in ink and cruelty. Explain this, Judy said, tapping the email. The wife's voice fractured. You are twisting it. You do not understand what she did to me. What she did to you? Judy leaned in slightly. She worked for you. She cleaned your home. She followed your rules. And you responded by trying to erase her career. The plaintiff's head bowed, not in defeat, but in the weight of recognition. The truth was finally being spoken aloud by someone who could not be dismissed. The wife's carefully sculpted composure crumbled. "You do not know what it was like," she whispered. She was everywhere, always around, always watching. I felt threatened." "Threatened?" Judy repeated, voice soft but cutting. "By an employee doing her job?" The wife shook her head rapidly. Tears clung to her lashes but refused to fall, trapped by pride. "She wanted something. I could sense it. She was trying to get close to my husband." The plaintiff inhaled sharply, her fingers flying to her lips as if physically struck. "That is not true," she said softly. "I never spoke to him unless he asked where something was. I never—" "Of course you would deny it," the wife snapped. But the fire lacked heat now. It sounded like an old match, struggling to ignite. Judge Judy raised a hand, silencing her with a single gesture. "Do you have any proof of this alleged behavior?" The wife stiffened. "I just know." "You just know," Judy repeated. "Yet you had enough certainty to sabotage her employment prospects?" The wife blinked, tears finally gathering at the corners of her eyes. I thought she was taking something from me." "And what was that?" Judy asked. The wife inhaled a ragged breath. "My place, my security, my worth." The courtroom changed then. The tension shifted from anger to something unexpectedly fragile, not sympathy, but exposure. A wound revealed. Still, Judge Judy did not soften. She could acknowledge emotion without surrendering accountability. "You attacked her livelihood," Judy said, "because you could not manage your insecurity." The plaintiff's eyes shimmered. Hurt, yes, but also vindication at last. The wife's breath hitched. "You are twisting everything. I did nothing wrong," she whispered, the words collapsing even as she said them. "Nothing. I only did what anyone in my position would do." "No," Judy said quietly. "You did what someone afraid of truth would do." The wife froze. Judy folded her hands, gaze unblinking. "Before we continue," she said, "I want you to tell this courtroom exactly what you were afraid of." The wife's throat tightened, and for the first time she looked genuinely terrified of her own answer. Her throat tightened before she could answer. A single, thin breath escaped her lips, the kind that sounded like someone realizing there was nowhere left to run. For the first time, the courtroom saw it. Fear, not anger, not entitlement, real fear. The wife's hands gripped the podium so hard her rings dug into her skin, leaving crescents of pressure and denial. She tried to speak, but the words tangled at her tongue, knotted by panic. Judge Judy waited. She knew the power of silence. She let it stretch, let it expose. Finally, the wife rasped, I was afraid of losing everything." "Everything?" Judy repeated softly, leaning forward just enough to press the moment deeper. "Your home, your marriage, or your image?" The wife winced as if struck. "You do not understand," she whispered. "I had to keep control. If I did not, people would walk all over me. They always try." The plaintiff stood in stillness, shoulders curled inward, as if reliving every moment she had been made to feel small under this woman's shadow. Judge Judy turned her gaze toward the plaintiff, then back to the wife. "No one was walking over you. They were working for you. There is a difference." The wife shook her head violently, eyes reddening. "You are twisting this. She was not innocent. She hovered around me, listening, watching. She wanted to be part of my life. I could feel it." The plaintiff gasped. "That is not true. I never—" But Judy raised a hand gently toward her, not to silence, but to protect. "Let her speak," Judy said. "Let her reveal what she has been hiding." The wife's breathing turned uneven. "She was everywhere," she hissed. "I felt like she was waiting for something, waiting to take something from me." "And what exactly was she taking?" Judy asked, voice low, deliberate. The wife looked down at her hands. Her shoulders quivered. confidence melted into something fragile and raw. "My place," she whispered. "My place in my house, my place in my marriage, my place in my own life." The courtroom shifted. No one moved, but the air trembled with the weight of her confession. Judy's tone softened, not with sympathy, but with comprehension sharpened by decades of human behavior. "So you struck first," she said. "To keep power, to keep your version of security." The wife's voice cracked open. "I had to," she choked out. "If I did not, I would disappear. I felt him drifting away. I felt everything slipping, and she was there. She reminded me of everything I was losing." The plaintiff's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked as if she wanted to step backward, as if being accused of stealing someone's life was a burden she never imagined carrying. Judge Judy inhaled slowly. "Let me be very clear," she said. "You destroyed her career to protect an insecurity, not a truth, an insecurity." The wife's knees buckled slightly. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You do not know what I lost, what he... She stopped. Her breath hitched, her eyes filled. Judge Judy's voice cut through like a needle threading truth. "What did he do?" The wife's lips trembled. "I cannot," she whispered. "You must," Judy said softly. "Because this is the breaking point." The wife's face crumpled. The first real collapse. She drew in a shaky breath, eyes glistening with a truth she had never dared speak aloud. And then, in a voice that barely carried across the room, she said, "He left. Because of me." The confession hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, shimmering, trembling, one breath away from shattering. "He left. Because of me." And in that instant, the courtroom no longer saw a millionaire's wife. They saw a woman standing in the ruins she built with her own hands. Her voice cracked in the middle of the sentence, a break so sharp it startled even her. She touched her chest as if trying to steady something inside that had been spinning out of control for months. Her diamond bracelet slid loosely down her wrist, a symbol of wealth that suddenly looked more like a shackle than a privilege. Judge Judy folded her hands, her expression softening only enough to acknowledge the human truth emerging. "What do you mean he left because of you?" she asked. The wife blinked, tears finally spilling over, not elegant, not restrained, but raw. "He was tired," she whispered, "tired of my suspicion, tired of me accusing everyone who breathed near him, tired of me being afraid he would leave." "So you pushed him away to stop him from leaving?" Judy asked gently, though the clarity of the question cut like a scalpel. The wife nodded, shoulders shaking. "I thought, if I controlled everything around me, everyone around us, then he would stay. I tried to keep the world small, manageable." She wiped her cheek with trembling fingers. "But the smaller I made the world, the more alone I became. And the more I feared losing him, the more I tightened my grip." The plaintiff's breath released slowly, almost silently. Not pity, but recognition of pain she had been dragged into without consent. Judy continued, voice quiet but firm. "And where does she fit into this?" She gestured toward the plaintiff. The wife pressed her hands to her temples as though ashamed of her own thoughts. "She was kind," she said. "Too kind." He liked that about her, her calmness, her honesty. He said she reminded him of what our house used to feel like before everything became heavy. The plaintiff's eyes widened in shock. She shook her head immediately. I never had any relationship with him. I barely spoke to him." "I know that now," the wife said, voice breaking. "But back then I saw threats everywhere. I thought she was replacing me. I thought anyone who smiled at him was a danger." Judge Judy absorbed the confession without flinching. "Fear," she said, "does not excuse cruelty, but understanding it helps explain the choices." The wife nodded miserably. "I punished her," she admitted. "Not because she did anything wrong, but because I was drowning, and she was the easiest person to grab onto and blame." Her body sagged as though the truth itself had weight. "And that," Judy said, is why this evidence, this retaliation, was not a mistake. It was intentional. It was born from insecurity, not justice. The wife's tears fell harder now, dotting the podium. The courtroom stayed silent, witnessing not just an admission, but the internal collapse that came with it. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice steady and final. "One question remains," she said. "If your husband left months ago, who exactly have you been performing this arrogance for?" The wife froze, as if she had just realized the answer might destroy her all over again. The confession did not just land. It rippled. A quiet tremor moved through the courtroom, the kind that made even the walls feel closer, as if the room itself leaned in to witness the aftermath. And the wife. She looked hollow, as though truth had drained something essential from her veins. Her hands slipped from the podium, fingers trembling, eyes staring at a point somewhere beyond her own reflection. That polished golden mask she had worn so proudly was gone now, shattered clean through, leaving only a woman trying to gather pieces too sharp to hold. Judge Judy allowed a long silence, a deliberate one, the kind that gives the fallen a moment to understand how far they have dropped. "Take a breath," Judy said quietly. Not warm, not sympathetic, but not cold either. It was the voice of someone offering a chair to a person who had just realized they could not stand. The wife inhaled shakily, her voice barely audible. "I did not mean all of this. I did not mean to hurt her. I just—" She stopped, unable to finish. The plaintiff shifted her weight. Her expression was not triumphant. It was wounded, reflective. "I never wanted to be part of your pain," she said softly. "I never wanted to replace you. I just needed my job." The wife covered her mouth with her hand, a sound escaping her, not a cry, but the gasp of someone realizing the damage she caused cannot be undone. "I ruined your life," she whispered, over a fear that was never real. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice gentle but steady as steel. "Fear explains behavior. It does not erase responsibility. And for months, you let this woman suffer because you needed someone to blame." The plaintiff's eyes shimmered, but she did not cry. She stood taller now, not in victory, but in release. The years of being dismissed, doubted, silenced, they were lifting, piece by piece. The wife wiped her cheeks with shaking fingers. "I have lost everything," she admitted. "My marriage, my reputation, myself, and I blamed her because she was the one thing I could still control." Judy's gaze softened, for a moment. "Control is a dangerous comfort," she said. "It makes people believe that harm is justified if it keeps their fears quiet." The wife nodded slowly, absorbing each word like a lesson she wished she had learned before her world fractured. Judy turned to the plaintiff. "You endured humiliation, retaliation. You were nearly erased professionally because someone with power refused to look inward." The plaintiff's chin trembled. "I did not want her destroyed," she said. "I just wanted the chance to support my family again." A brief, fragile silence followed, the kind that comes right before judgment. Judge Judy lifted the folder one last time, opening to the final page. Something written there caught the light, something the wife recognized instantly. Her breath stopped. Judy tapped the page, eyes never leaving the wife. "There is one document here," she said, "that neither of you have explained, and it changes how I deliver my ruling." The wife's face drained, as if the truth had returned for one last blow. The moment Judge Judy tapped that page, the wife's entire body went still. Not frozen in defiance, frozen in recognition. She knew what was coming. She knew exactly which document she hoped would never see daylight. Judge Judy slid the page forward, turning it just enough for the wife to see her own handwriting curling across the bottom. It was the same looping script that decorated expensive stationery and holiday cards. But here, in the context of truth, it looked almost childlike, desperate, brutal. "This note," Judy said, "was found tucked behind the photograph. You did not mention it, neither did the plaintiff. But its presence tells a story." The plaintiff pressed a hand to her chest, eyes widening. I did not know that was in there. I never saw a note." The wife's hands trembled on the podium. She closed her eyes as if bracing for an impact she already knew she deserved. Judy read aloud, slowly, letting the words settle like stones. "You are replaceable. Do not forget that." A collective exhale drifted through the courtroom, shock mixed with sorrow, the kind of reaction reserved for cruelty that hits a nerve deeper than anger. The plaintiff shook her head in disbelief. Not angry, not triumphant, just deeply wounded. "You wrote that?" she whispered. The wife opened her eyes, red, exhausted, and nodded once. A tiny broken gesture. "I was angry," she murmured. "Not at her, at myself, at my life unraveling. I wanted to feel powerful, so I said the cruelest thing I could think of." Judy laid the note on top of the other evidence, the forged document, the vindictive email, the time-stamped photo, forming a small tower of truth, the kind that leaves no room for excuses. "Cruelty," Judy said, "is often a grab for control when everything else feels lost. But it is still cruelty." The wife bowed her head. The plaintiff blinked rapidly, tears threatening but refusing to fall. "I kept thinking maybe I misunderstood," she said softly. "Maybe she did not mean to hurt me. But this—" She touched the edge of the note gently, as though it might burn her. "This is not a mistake. This is what she wanted me to feel." Judge Judy let a heavy beat of silence pass before speaking. "The damage you caused was not just financial," she said to the wife. "It was emotional. You stripped her of dignity. You used her fear to reinforce your own sense of importance." The wife's voice cracked. I know I did. I see it now. I was losing my marriage, losing myself. I felt invisible. I used her to make the world feel smaller, so I would not feel so lost." Judy's expression softened, only a fraction. Self-destruction is tragic, but dragging another person into that spiral is unforgivable. The plaintiff looked at the wife, not angry, but resolute. "I just wanted a chance to work. I never wanted to become part of your pain." "And yet she paid the price," Judy said. The wife bowed her head lower, shoulders shaking under the weight of accountability finally settling on them. Judy closed the folder. The sound echoed. "Everything I need is here," she said. "The evidence, the intent, the consequences." She lifted her eyes. "Now," Judy said, voice firm and final, "I am ready to deliver the ruling, but there is one more truth you need to face before I do." The wife looked up, terrified of the next truth waiting to break her open. The courtroom held its breath, not in anticipation, but in reckoning. The wife stood trembling, stripped of every illusion she once hid behind. And Judge Judy, steady as an anchor in a storm, prepared to bring the truth home. Judy clasped her hands on the bench. The folder remained closed, symbolic, final, a boundary the wife could no longer outrun. "You have spent a long time," Judy began, her voice softer than expected, "believing that power meant the ability to diminish others." She lifted her eyes. "But real power is the ability to restrain yourself, something you failed to do." The wife lowered her gaze, not defiant, not angry, simply exposed. Judy continued. "You sabotaged her career. You attempted to present forged evidence. You weaponized your fear and insecurity. This court does not punish emotional collapse, but it does hold people accountable for the damage they cause while collapsing." The plaintiff's chin trembled. Relief shimmered across her face like sunlight breaking through a bruise. She did not look at the wife with triumph, only a quiet, aching hope that justice might finally restore what had been taken from her. "You lost work," Judy said to the plaintiff. "You lost stability. You lost dignity in a process designed to deny your humanity. And all because this woman believed she had a right to decide your fate." The plaintiff nodded gently, tears rimmed in gratitude. Judy turned back to the wife, who stood barely upright, her fingers curled around the podium for support. "Here is where we stand," Judy said. "The damages caused were significant, not just financial but emotional. You inflicted fear, you attempted to silence her, and you nearly succeeded." A tear rolled down the wife's cheek. She did not wipe it away. You have a choice, Judy continued. You can let this moment define your humanity, or you can let it refine it, but you will not leave this courtroom thinking your actions were justified. The plaintiff exhaled, a long breath she had been holding for months, maybe years. As for my ruling, Judy said, lifting the folder and setting it squarely on the bench, I am awarding the plaintiff full damages for lost income, as well as additional compensation for emotional harm. The wife's shoulders collapsed inward, grief mixing with relief. Relief that the punishment, while heavy, was not designed to destroy her, only to redirect her. And one more thing, Judy added, voice firm but not cruel. The plaintiff will receive a written acknowledgement from you, not an apology, not a justification, an acknowledgement, a recognition of the harm you caused. The wife nodded, tears dripping. I will do that. She deserves nothing less, Judy said. Silence fell again, but this time, the silence carried closure. Judge Judy leaned back. There is one final truth you both must hear before this case ends. The wife lifted her eyes slowly, and the courtroom braced for the moral verdict waiting in the judge's next breath. Would you call this justice, redemption, or something in between? Tell me in the comments. Where should accountability end and forgiveness begin? Judge Judy did not raise her gavel yet. Instead, she let the moment breathe, the rare kind of silence that feels like a mirror being held up to every person in the room. The wife steadied herself, bracing for the truth she knew was coming, but had never allowed herself to hear. Judy folded her hands across the bench, her expression measured and almost gentle. We have talked about responsibility, she began. We have talked about fear. But there is one truth both of you must carry out of this room. The plaintiff lifted her eyes, quiet but strong. The wife looked hollow, exhausted, waiting for a final blow she feared she deserved. Judy's voice softened, not kind, not forgiving, but clear. Arrogance and insecurity are closer cousins than most people realize. One believes it cannot be touched. The other believes it cannot survive being touched. The wife's eyes flickered, recognition, regret, understanding all rising to the surface at once. You, Judy continued, nodding toward her, allowed your insecurities to metastasize into cruelty. And once cruelty begins, it does not ask for permission. It takes, it consumes, it justifies itself. The plaintiff lowered her head, breathing in the relief of being seen. Finally, fully, not as an accuser, but as a human being, wronged. But you, Judy said, turning now to the plaintiff, stood your ground. You endured more than anyone should, and you kept your dignity even when someone tried to rip it from you. The plaintiff blinked, tears slipping free, silent, grateful. Judy leaned back, eyes sweeping the courtroom. Justice, she said, is not about humiliation. It is not about retribution. It is about balance, about recognizing harm and restoring what can be restored. She shifted her gaze to the wife, whose breath shook unevenly. You lost your marriage long before you walked into this room, not because of her, not because of the world, because you refused to see that control is not the same as security. The wife's tears fell freely now, not defensive, not performative, but born of a truth she could not outrun. You have a long road ahead, Judy said, and it will not be money or status that rebuilds your life. It will be honesty, humility, and the willingness to stop performing strength and start learning it. A quiet, heavy pause filled the room. Then Judy turned to the plaintiff. Her voice softened. As for you, today does not erase the harm done, but it begins the process of restoring your footing, your dignity, your worth. The plaintiff nodded, her chest rising with a breath that finally felt full. Judy lifted her gavel. This court rules in favor of the plaintiff. Damages awarded as previously stated, acknowledgement required. And let this be clear. Your worth, she said to the plaintiff, was never hers to define. The gavel struck, one clean sound that seemed to settle the very air. The wife exhaled a broken sob, her arrogance gone, replaced by the quiet beginning of accountability. The plaintiff closed her eyes, relief washing through her like light breaking through storm clouds. Judge Judy stood. In the end, truth does not destroy people, it reveals them, and arrogance always collapses under the weight of its own fear. The courtroom doors opened, and the story's final truth lingered long after they walked out.